Hello everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of 1 Week to Kill, a video where I dive into a free-to-play game there for a week's time and give you, any viewers here interested in the game, if they give you the results after a week's time, let you see how accessible the game is essentially in a nutshell. Or rather, you'll be grinding it up the wazoo, essentially. This time around, we are going to be having a look at War Thunder. This is a tank, third-person, shooter-style action game there. Primarily, the game mode I'm currently in is arcade mode, which is pretty much the main function you'll be diving into as you first play this game for the very first time. It is a free-to-play game there. It's at face value, when you first look at it, it's going to remind you a lot of World of Tanks there, but the cool thing with War Thunder, at least, is that this is actually only one part of the actual game, because originally War Thunder was an aircraft game, air fighting, dogfighting type of game, and then after some time after that, they actually managed to adapt it to include tank combat, and there's even a game mode where you can include the players who focus strictly on the aircrafts and have them pair up with certain tanks there in the simulation mode there. But I will talk about that a little later on here. So, what is this game about there? Aside from what's pretty straightforward, it's a third-person type of shooter game here with the usual twerks there. You got your little sniper mode there for the longer range shots, more focused shots, but that's pretty much where the differences end as far as World of Tanks is concerned if you have played this game before, because how the concept of combat works is far, far different. And as I try and get myself out of this little ditch here, I'll show you. Because as you can see, when you hit the target there up on top right, you get yourself an X-ray vision. And this is pretty damn important, because there's no HP on these tanks. Essentially, how it works is, you need to knock out the crew of the opposing tank. Whether it's by just killing the crew straight up with cannon rounds, by exploding their ammunition, or lighting them on fire, essentially. In this case, I just took out all the crew, and that was kind of an easy pick, essentially, because it was like an armored anti-air truck. So it's nothing too exciting to talk about there, but it gives a perfect example of what you need to do about this game. And when you start to understand how it works there, it can really start to feel really overwhelming and really complicated really fast. Because all these tanks have different stats to them, different positions of the crew, different positions of the engines, the fuel tanks, the ammo, everything is completely unique and different for almost all these tanks. So, when you try and fight this Panzer III like I am now, it can be a little bit tricky to know where to aim at, because where you're aiming is very important. And this reticle, as you're seeing there, when it highlights green or red, that indicates how likely it is to penetrate the armor. I'm pretty well formidable with this M5, which is currently the tank I'm using. M5A1 as it's properly called. And I have it upgraded with the best type of upgrades you can get at, so I am confident I am capable to take on pretty much anything I encounter on here. And there was a brief moment there, if you were paying attention, where I pretty much lost access to my turret because my gunner actually is dead or knocked out. Whenever you so wish, you can actually get an X-ray of your own status of your ship. In this case, my turret cannon is kind of destroyed. Well, not really destroyed, but it is crippled, so it makes aiming a little bit more inaccurate. Heck, in some cases, you have an increased chance of a misfire because of these damaged components. So what I'm going to do is when your tank's immobile, when you have your tank standing still, that you have the option to repair, which you can see on the bottom left. Thankfully, the damage is pretty minor, but you do leave yourself vulnerable. In this case, I'm about to get myself killed here. Thankfully, the repairs are done, so I need to try and disable him. What I'm going to do is aim for the gunner, ideally. There is machine guns to try and chip away at him. And let's see. I don't know what I killed, so this is going to be tricky. Of course, the angle, deflection, all the usual stuff from World Tanks is still present. And okay, what's the gunner I need to kill? You get like a layout on the right underneath that X-ray to tell you what exactly you damaged and what you hit. Yellow for what's injured, red for what's crippled, if not straight up knocked out. There's a lot of nuance to this game here that's really hard to dive into there. And like I said, it can be incredibly overwhelming. Like, you have the basic nuances of like the angles, the armor value of certain tanks there, trying to flank them there, on top of the fact that you need to kill their crew members. And this may not be the most ideal spot. Ooh, and I actually got a good shot there. He lost his vertical can, so if he wants to be able to aim up and down anymore, aside from where it's already placed, he's going to need to repair that, which probably disables him for maybe 15-20 seconds maybe, depending on how trained his crew is. And what was I going to say? Oh yeah, the majority of the game modes, at least on the tank side, when you're driving the tanks, is like capturing these objectives. Early on in the game, you only have access to like one objective there to try and fight for, with actually little secondary objectives, which I don't know what they have, what has appeared currently in this game mode, but you'll have a bunch of NPCs like a convoy that you'll need to take out to kind of get like bonus progression. You'll have a secondary temporary objective that as soon as you capture is gone. And pretty much the game will end either when you destroy all the tanks of the opposing team. If I remember correctly, this is 15 on 15, if I remember correctly, with each player having access to 3 tanks there, at least in arcade mode. So I can choose this tank, and when it's taken out, I can choose to sub in one of my other tanks. Unless you have like backup resources there, which is kind of more like into the currency stuff there. You can pay to have like an additional backup of the current tank if you're really into like this M5A1, for example. So I'll try and get on to that a little bit more, but it is going to be really complicated to talk about this as I'm trying to play and perform here. Although I think I demonstrate my point a little bit there. I'm already on like I think a 4 or 5 game killing streak. So what I'm going to show you, I was going to show you, and then it got taken there, is down below. You have access to like kill streaks essentially for the arcade or tank modes. In this case, I have access to the fighters there, and you can get like access to the air superiority fighter if you get like 1 kill's worth during your time in the battlefield. You get access to a fighter bomber at 2, and you get a full-on heavy bomber at 3 kills there. And of course, as is self-explanatory, the bomber and fighter bombers, you essentially want to kill the troops on the ground. But with the air superiority fighter, you have machine guns to kind of weaken software units here. But this is primarily what to expect as flying aircraft. And I was trying to find an aircraft, but I guess he actually crashed. I heard something crash anyway. And since I have nothing to really fight, I'm going to try and do some damage here. And you have about 40 seconds, a minute or so roughly, to try and do as much damage as you can. Or, well, this is not going very well. I am not well versed in these aircrafts. I spent the entire my time pretty much playing with the tank mode. So that was a pretty abysmal run. And like I said, this is air superior fighter. So I wasn't going to do a whole lot of damage to the tanks anyway. But the thing you need to be careful of is when you activate your kill streak there to get on a fighter net, your tank's still vulnerable. So you do that probably with a fresh spawn, outside of getting into your aircraft like I did there out in the front lines essentially. And we are doing a lot of fighting here. It looks like, yeah, we have the lead there, so they're feeling pressure to try and get the objective. And I guess he bugged out or DC'd, I don't know, he was just spinning around. That was a lower quality tank too, so I don't think that's what's gonna happen. And we got ourselves a medium tank here. It is a lower tier tank, so I think that signifies he lost his like higher quality tank, so he's stuck. I don't know why he's ignoring me though. This is kind of like anticlimactic a little bit. I was really expecting to have a hard time here, so apologies for making this look like a bot game at the moment. This is an actual live PvP game. I have just spent a lot of time with the tanks I'm currently using, especially my M5. And I guess he disconnected too, or he's in an aircraft. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to assume that's what happened there. But yeah. With that said, these games do go on for like 20-30 minutes, I think. And I don't know, I think I killed his gunner, so he can't shoot until he gets that replaced there, because once you take out a driver, your tank is immobilized for like 5-10 seconds there to allow your crew to time to readjust and get like a new member in the driving wheel essentially there. And as more of your crew gets knocked out, your tank becomes less and less efficient at what it does there. So each one of your crew members is very important depending on what you prioritize in your effectiveness. Like if you're going to be a sniper or tank destroyer, you want to have your gunner up above all else essentially. Whereas for my light tank here, having a driver might be more effective. Like I just killed this driver now, I don't expect him to be able to move anytime soon. And speaking of which, my engine just died, so I am promptly out finally after what seemed like a stomp there. So now I'll show you how it works. That was my first tank, and with in-game currency you can get access to like 5 different crafts there, with the aircraft not available to me because this is strictly a tank-based battle. So that's why it's right out there. But if you really want to, if you're really fixated on like the air battles or just strictly tanks, you can have up to 5 different tanks there, and they all have the different stats and such. In this case, I'm going to show up my lovely Locust there, because I have a lot of fun with this thing. Also, you can also put little free cosmetics on there. Pretty much all of them are achievement based, but you can use premium cash on this game. There are lots of little microtransactions to these games, seeing as it's a pretty free-to-play game, but a lot of the stuff you can get access to just by playing the game. Like as an example, I got this Grasshopper Tex pretty much from just killing a certain number of players, and you continue to get more of them unlocked the more you play. And I even got access to a Canadian flag, which I could probably put on the side of my turret too if I was really feeling fancy there. But yeah, this is my M22 there. It's basically, they have a traditional like battle value there to give you a rough idea how effective the tank is overall. And the battle value here is essentially the same as my M5. The only difference is this is a lot more smaller, a lot more maneuverable, but it has the same cannon, so it still can do the same kind of damage. I just gotta be more mindful of doing of getting exposed, because this thing has 8% armor, and it also only has 3 crews, so that's also an important fact. Whereas World of Tanks has hit point base here, the number of crew you have can significantly impact how durable your tank is. Whereas my M5, I believe, had 4, maybe 5 crew members. The Locust here has only 3, and I don't even think it has an actual gunner. I think it has a commander, a loader, up on top there, and a driver. And with this said, I was going to follow after him, and now I'm out in the open here. This is not what you want with a Locust of this value. And I got a good hit on the transmission, that knocked it out, so hopefully I think he's not able to move anymore, but with this hill I'm going to have a hard time actually getting the shot off I want. Unless I do something tricky here. Let's see, does it pay off? It pays off, but I didn't do any permanent damage, as the X-ray indicates. Yeah, doing damage to their game points, but still not promptly killing anything worthwhile. My engine just died, so expect me to die in the next salvo here. Really, with a tank like this, you need to be smart with how you position yourself because of how fragile it is. Heck, pretty much almost all the light tanks there are essentially like that. But considering this is like the early tier portions of the game, you only have access to like tank destroyers, light tanks like this M5, and medium tanks, which is like this Lee, heavy armor and all that there. And also, unlike World Tanks, so you have access, depending on the type of tank you have all sorts of different weaponry here. Like in this case, I got several machine guns. Heck, I even have access to 2 cannons there, which is indicated by the icon up top there. It's not as fluid and clean as you would just having a single can here, because I've been having issues using the Lee here, for example, to fire with my main cannon. Because that front gun you see does the most damage, but it's a slightly... you have to adjust for it, which is a little inconvenient there. But considering this is like the only tank, I believe, in the game that has like dual turrets, cannon turrets there, it's not something you're going to really run into, especially if you use like different factions here. Like if you were to go for the aviation or the aircraft type battles, you have access to 5 different countries. Essentially, you got the Germans, you got the Russians, you got US, of course, as apparent with my tanks I'm using now. You got Japanese, and I think Chinese is the fifth one. I can't remember off the top of my head. But with the tanks, you only have access to the Germans, the Russians, and North Americans at the moment, or the US rather. So you have a little bit limited in the tank battles there, but there's still a large number of like tanks to get access to. And it seems like the battle has pretty much came to a standstill, and I think that's because, yeah, we are down to maybe 5. Yeah, we're down to like 5, maybe 6 tanks left, so they're almost completely wiped out, and this game will promptly end once they are all destroyed, or that progression bar just empties out completely for the red team there. So it'll be over momentarily, so since it seems like the game's over there, I'm just going to straight up skip to what the UI looks like and talk about the microtransaction in a bit. That is the end of that battle there, and after you finish up with said battle there, it doesn't matter whether it's like aircraft battle or tank battles there, you get your score screen there, you get a bunch of stats as per usual, and you get like yourself a bunch of medals here in this case. And like here's an example of achievement I got after like doing, let's see, killing enough players that I get access to like a brand new decal I can use here. In this case it's 2DB Insignia, and of course a bunch of medals and all that there. And all of these medals you get like credits and all that there. The in-game currency, at least the basic currency for everyone, is going to be like the silver lines, which is what you can see up here. That's going to be your main currency, as it promptly states for me even. And over here you got access to your research there for like your higher tier tanks and all that. In this case I'm working on a tank destroyer, which is the M10, and it also gives the stats for all the tanks I use in the current battle, as well as upgrades and all that here. So quickly run down with that. Every tank has basically, this is what you're going to see for almost every single tank. The only exception may be like these ammo here is going to be a little bit different. Aircrafts, you're going to have like different types of upgrades, but they're all generally the same. Some are going to have like bombs you can add, like fighter bombers, and like of course the heavy bombers as well themselves are going to like get different kinds of tanks for like carpet bombing there, like more. You're going to have like bigger bombs there for more like singular, more powerful type of bombs, and etc. In this case, all these require like research points, which you get based on pretty much how your tank performs, just like with the silver lines in this case. So, and as you research that there, you upgrade the tanks further until you unlock everything. And of course the research also contributes to like your next tank there, as you already saw, like the M10. But you can't really choose if you want to focus all your research on the tank you want to upgrade or not. For what they did, you have convertible research points, which is what you can spend the premium currency to kind of transfer over if you really wish, which is the Golden Eagle here. So what they have here is pretty straightforward. You can spend more money here. Each of these are like in dollar values, I'm pretty certain. So $1 for 150, that all the way up to 115. So it's really hard to judge how beneficial it is for you, but it seems like in game, if you don't choose to spend money there, you got a lot of like little treats there to help progress you along further here. Like in this case, I actually ended up gaining access to this Golden Battle Wager, and what this does, the one thing I didn't notice when I looked at it at first is that if you have a rank 3 or tier 3 to tier 5 tank, you can basically get your access to premium currency there, and all I need to do with this one is get at least one player kill is really all it requires from what I'm reading here. And I have 10 missions to do this in, but if I can do that successfully in all 10, I get 500 Golden Eagles. So just, we'll have a second look. Let's see, 500 Golden Eagles, so I get $3 worth. So not a big deal there, but you can use it for a whole bunch of different stuff. Like there's of course the premium account, which gives you like massive boosts to your research lines, of course, and all that there, if you so wish. And if I were to get that 500, I could get like a full week there, basically without spending any money. So there is potential there. And a lot of these stuffs are randomly given to you. Like these two bonus boosters here, well, really all of these things are like I got like trophies based on which is a random chance you get as you're playing the game. I'm not sure if it's just for taking part in the battle or based on the number of medals or your score in the game. They're increasing the likeliness of getting them. But like, you can get like cool stuff like these ores, which changes the dynamic. Just a small just for like a fun factor and like getting credits there of the game. Like in this case, you can destroy marked units, and then the players that destroy them become a mark themselves. And if every time a player kills those targets, they get additional lines and credits for it there. And this one, you get bonus for like destroying 3 tanks. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like you get the. Oh, actually, depends on the amount of resources. So it doesn't say specifics here. Just destroy enemy vehicles. So some of these are based on whoever has the most kills or most score after a certain duration. In this case it would be 5 minutes. And the reward there is 3 times your silver lines. So you can change the dynamic a little bit there for the battles there, but not in a dramatic way, just more like being able to benefit off it. And of course these other trophies here, you can get like boosters. Like this one I get for 40% research boost for like 10 missions, or if you want you can get this one for like 10 boost for everything, which is kind of minor, but considering other players are going to be getting these kind of boosters as well, it's still going to benefit you, even if it's like hinders your progress a little bit. When other players are using it as well, you benefit in the long term, I think. So it's a little bit odd with these kinds, which affect all allies. But they even give you like discounts here for like, if I so wish, I can get like, basically from what I saw, there's $3 discount on a Tiger if I so wish. And I wonder if that stacks. If you can stack that, it's potentially possible. You can use that for like get things for free, but of course there's a duration, so never mind what I just said there. And there's a bunch of other boosters like that. And the research, like the tier system I told you about, is like this. You got these set dividers here for each of the tiers. You got tier 1, or rank 1 as they call it, rank 2, 3, and 4, going up to rank 5 there. And it's even more crazy with aircrafts, because originally this game was an air fighting game, or aircraft based game, so it is a lot more fleshed out, a lot more in depth, and a lot more aircrafts to get access to. All the way up to, I think these are the Vietnam War type aircrafts. I'm not very good at my history there, so I could be wrong, or they at least ones that were used for Vietnam War. And of course, like I said, okay, it was China for the 5th faction, so you got access to all sorts of different aircrafts if you so wish. Of course, you have access to 5 aircraft types, therefore, if you wish to go air, but for tanks, you only have access to 3. And they have their own list of units as well. And of course, like I said before, you have access to light tanks, you have medium tanks, well, when I can find a medium tank. You have heavy tanks here as well, with up IS-1, all the classics there, and you got tank destroyers. And interestingly enough, you also have access to anti-aircraft guns, which is a little more of a niche role, but as you can see with like kill streaks and that, they can have an important effect on how things handle, because like heavy bombers can instantly kill pretty much any tanks if they were successfully get their bombs off on like a cluster of tanks. So these guys are important if you know the proper times to use them. They're like in the middle of a game after people got like their kill streaks up and are starting to utilize them. But obviously they have very little value at the very start of it. If you want my opinion, that's what I think anyway. But that is basically arcade mode, which is pretty much what you go to at first here when you see this 2 battle. But you can change that to like realistic battle, which cuts down on some of the effects that you have there. Like with realistic battles, I think you do not get like those red highlight markers for like enemy units if you spot them. If it's not that, you lose the little armor penetration indicator I had when I'm aiming at the tanks there. You do get some more hindering factors there, and your tanks mobility tanks and aircraft's mobility even adjusts accordingly. And all the way up to simulator battles, which you have no like factors that are based on the game. It tries to make it as simulation based as possible, where aircrafts you have to take off and land at a landing bay if you want to repair yourself or rearm. And tanks, let's see, they take an eternity to repair, I think, based on like permanent actual major damage like tracks and engines and that. And I can't remember specifics of them though. I think you still get like access to like 2, maybe 3 vehicles there. But this is a combination of tanks and aircrafts. There's no kill streaks in this sense. So there's an interesting combination there. But of course, the tanks are probably the more popular because you're going to be frequently engaged there. Where bombers, it's like a strafing run there, and then you have to fly all the way back. So a little bit more slower pace. I haven't really played this, so I can't say for certain though. In the realistic battles, I have done like 1 or 2 games. It cuts back on some of the factors that you saw that I had access to for the arcade game. So a lot of variety there, although the majority of players are more than likely playing arcade battles until you get up to maybe the higher tiers where the more hardcore players are at, and more dedicated players even, who are looking to get a bit of a challenge, so the queues are likely to be a little bit longer. And of course, let's see, there's a bunch of events on the right here. I have a tutorial that I haven't finished there, and battle trophies and all that. Let's see, what is this? Oh yeah, it just shows the battle trophies there for a chance to loot, so that is pretty much that. Otherwise, I feel like with my experience so far, I spent about 10 hours on this game here, and I've unlocked almost all the way to through tier 2. With my Locust Light Tank almost completely upgraded, and I have almost access to my tier 2 like M10 here. But I'm starting to hit that wall where this game is going to become increasingly grindy in that sense. Like, it's hard to judge here, but let's see. Actually, let me take a look at this. So that's 14,000 research points. So this is about 10 hours of play, so you can judge based on how much I unlocked. I got all the tier 1 stuff incredibly fast, but it took maybe like 10 games roughly, I think, to get my M10, or at least get to where it is now. Roughly, maybe less than that because I was using boosters actually, but that was 14,000 and easily doubles there if I want to upgrade to tier 3, and that's just a 1-step upgrade. Maybe because it's more dramatic. Yeah, that's 18,000 there for like an M4 Sherman, whereas 14,000 for the starting version. So it does continue to scale up. You're going to have to pay for repair costs, so that could also be a concern there. So you may be stuck in a place around tier 3, tier 4, where you're going to have your Silver Lines is going to slow to a crawl there, especially if you're having a harder time trying to get a grasp of this game. Whereas I have actually played this game before there. I played like about last year, so I understand the nuances of this game quite a bit. So I had a really easy time. So that's not to say this is what you should expect. This is kind of more the extreme, because I had a really good time progressing through here. There are some concerns though. Battle rating there, which you see right under the rank, that will influence your matchmaking essentially. This is very important to note if you are interested in trying this game. Like, the battle rating here, it does divide what you're matched up against there, because it's not because of these tiers as it may seem to you at first glance. So if I ever like have an entire squad of battle rating 1.3, I'm going to be fighting tanks that are only 1.3, but as soon as I get this tank destroyer, which is battle rating 2, I'm going to be fighting against M3 Lees, M5 A1s, and anything roughly around that value, even though I have only an M3 for like my light tank, maybe an M2 there for my medium tank, and only just barely got this M3 here, a 75mm gun. And that was, of course, being not upgraded, being untested and not really upgraded, you're going to feel like you're going to get stomped there more often than not. So you need to be very mindful of this. This is a very important fact. I don't know exactly where these lines are, but I expect as soon as I get something like the Shermans and the Chaffee here, I'm going to be fighting all sorts of tanks like that. I'm not going to be seeing any more M5s unless they're like backup tanks for like players who did, like I described, the situation I described there with like this 75mm gun. And I'm almost certain if I were to buy this M10, that's going to happen again in this case, where I'm going to be paired up against Shermans, the heavy tank variant of the Sherman there, and probably even some Tigers. I don't know what the battle ratings are, so this is a very important fact that this game seems interesting to you, because there's a lot of nuances to it. There's a lot of dynamics. You can, if you really understand like the tactical aspects of it and how to properly aim to account for each of these tanks to get maximum damage value there, you're gonna have a blast with this game. I know I certainly am. And one last final treat there, I'm just going to quickly just show over what the aircraft battle is going to be like. It is technically like you just saw there, but that's only like a minute or so. With the aircraft functionality, you get like it's like massive, like a 20-kilometer radius, I think there, maybe even larger than that. And like you just saw there, the queue is really quick, although it's tier 1. And it's pretty much what you expect. It's not exactly the same, because the tank battles are almost exactly the same type as you saw before. As you progress in higher tier though, there are more objectives you need to capture and secure, so it encourages spreading out in that sense to kind of win that way. Whereas the air battles, it is partially due to attrition, or in this case, there are different game modes there. There's one where you have to capture objectives by landing on landing fields, or at least get low enough to capture them that way. In this case, you have to destroy the tanks on the ground, and the game ends when you destroy all of them successfully, which is where the bombers are relevant in this game mode. In this case, I'm just trying to secure any bombers we have there, and if we kill all their fighters, that's pretty much the end of the game there. So that is War Thunder in a nutshell. As I repeat, I spent about 10 hours in this game, and I progressed all the way through, almost entirely through tier 2. I could have easily got to like tier 3 if I so wished. And being arcade mode, as soon as I run out of ammo, it's going to reload for me automatically. Well, heck, I think there wasn't a whole lot of ammo to begin with there. So, thank you all for watching.